topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Everybody, and welcome to Triversity Talk. I'm Wendy Stewart, and I am thrilled to be with you here on this Wednesday evening in the middle of the holiday week. I guess everybody is now recovering from Christmas, Hanukkah, and Kwanzaa and getting ready for New Year's. So let me just take this opportunity to wish everybody an amazing year ahead. Lord knows we all need it. Well, you know, I always speak the truth. But while I have you all here, I want to just call out that we had an amazing holiday party at Triversity. And this year we had it in upstate New York in Huguenot. You're probably wondering where the heck is that? That is in Sullivan County, and it is Camp Reimagine, which did a fabulous job for us. Camp Reimagine is a camp that is going to be on everybody's lips, no matter where you are in the country, because they are going to be offering special conferences, special camp weekends. They do also special weeks for the LGBTQ community. And I have to say, the food was out of this world, and they did the food. So, it was wonderful, and everyone had a really great time. And it was a real thrill to be able to give out awards to all the people locally that have helped our organization and are in there to help LGBTQ causes. So if you got an award, bless you. And if you're out there working and you're an activist, if you're a volunteer, here's to you. Thank you for everything that you do. Well, while we're on this wavelength, I might as well start to talk about tonight's guests. From the co-founder and lead organizer of the Reclaim Pride Coalition and the Queer Liberation March to founding member and president of Gays Against Guns, member of Rise and Resist, J.W. Walker is a longtime New York City queer activist and event producer. As a writer, their work has appeared in The Advocate, POZ Magazine, and many other community publications. Please, let's welcome J.W. Walker.
Hi, Wendy. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh my God, thank you so much for being here. I mean, you know, you, J.W. Walker, could be anywhere with everything you do. You could be at a meeting. You could be discussing things that are so relevant. And you are here tonight to discuss relevant things with us too. So, yeah. We really appreciate having you here. I'm just going to jump right in with you because you and I were talking a little bit before the show. You started to tell me about Project 2025, and me, who reads everything, is not aware of this. So could you please share with our audience what Project 2025 is? Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's so important that particularly members of the LGBTQIA2S plus community are very, very aware of what Project 2025 is. So when Donald Trump was running for president for his second term in 2020, he people might remember that he was constantly talking about the deep state. The deep state's out to get me. The deep state's undermining.
January
exactly. We still hear all about it. So his plan, had he actually won, not won in his head, like, you know, he still thinks he won his head, but had he actually won and been sworn in again, his plan was to fire like tens of thousands of professional federal employees, like long-term union members, the folks that literally have been keeping our government going for decades through every administration that comes. The regular federal employees, they just sort of get the job done. So he was going to do that. So he didn't win. But what's happened now is there's an organization that many of your viewers should know about called the Heritage Foundation. They are one of they're one of the three biggest right-wing think tanks. And think tanks is kind of almost a misnomer because
moron, if you ask me, literally.
Exactly, they really control the Republican Party. There's the Heritage Foundation and a couple of other organizations, like the Federalist Society, like ALEC. They literally control the Republican Party, from deciding which judges are going to be nominated to state and federal courts and the Supreme Court, to literally writing legislation, to determining the party platform. They've been running the show for 5 decades. So what they have done is they have launched a website called project2025.org, in which they are laying out this plan, that very plan that Donald Trump, had to fire everybody in the federal government and replace them all with loyalists. That plan is encoded in this 1,000-page document that the Heritage Foundation has gotten all of these right-wing scholars and intellectuals and movement leaders to write this 1,000-page document. So now it's not just about firing all the federal employees. It's about eliminating any discussion of gender, sexuality, sexual orientation, reproductive choice, bodily autonomy, race in the sense of history, from any and all federal documents. Erasing it all. Like literally, you could go on the web. You couldn't go on a website run by the government, for anything, and look up LGBTQ and find anything. Like every document, every contract, they want to wipe us all away. And beyond that, it's a really wide-ranging plan. They want to take, as you mentioned, I'm part of Gays Against Guns. They want to take the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms out of the Department of Homeland Security, where it has been since 9/11, since the Department of Homeland Security was founded, and move it back into the Treasury Department. Taking it away from law enforcement and putting it back into just issues of taxation and collecting revenue. It goes on and on.
Before you go forward, because you know so much about this, and I want to hear this. How has this been going on? Where we don't even, we hear about all the crazy stuff that is all over the internet, and it's on the normal media. Well, media is not normal anymore. I shouldn't say that. But how has this been going on behind closed doors or underground that we don't even know?
Well, the interesting thing about it, Wendy, is that it's actually been going on right out in the open. This website, project2025.org, has been live for 6 or 8 months. They have been actively, the Heritage Foundation and the other organizations that put this together have been actively reaching out for resumes. They are collecting resumes that they are then going to vet. Then they're going to put these people that they select from all the resumes they receive. They're shooting for 20,000 employees to be laying in wait should Donald Trump be or any Republican be elected. And then they're going to put them through an indoctrination training. All 20,000 resumes that they decide should go into the government under the next Republican president. So they've been doing it right because, see, here's the thing, Wendy, the same group before Ronald Reagan that basically put Ronald Reagan in office, they had a very similar plan when they put Ronald Reagan in office. And between the Reagan's 2 terms and George Herbert Walker Bush's 1 term, through that 12 years, they got 60% of the documents, the white papers that they had put forth about how the government should run. Then they got 60% of it done by the time Clinton got into office. And so they've done this before. And
so this has been going on right along. Wait, has it been cloaked under another name?
No. Some journalists have been writing about it. But the difficult thing that we've been finding is that our news media has become so commercial, so all about getting clickbait and getting views and getting ad dollars based on views.
And sensationalism.
Yeah. So what they'll do is they'll talk about it, but they'll only talk about it in regards to Donald Trump. And so what you have seen a lot of headlines about recently is Trump's revenge plan.
Yeah, right.
Trump dictator on day one. Basically, all of that stuff is the stuff that is run down in the Project 2025's document, which is downloadable. Anybody can go to project2025.org and download this 1,000-page document. And if eventually they're gonna shut it down because they're not gonna want as many people to get it. So, right. However, the group of LGBTQ activists that I'm working with, we're called Stop the Coup 2025, just STOPTHECOUP 2025.
I need to put that in here. It's called Stop the Coup 2025.
Yeah, okay. .org. We have taken that document, downloaded it ourselves, re-uploaded it onto our website. And so you can get the information. The beautiful thing that we've spent the last couple of months doing, not me personally, but other members of our team, is they've gone through and they have read every single word in that 1,000-page document. We've produced a 90-page summary, and then we've also produced a 10-page bullet point walk through the document. So all of that is available on our website, and I encourage folks to look at it. There is some truly awful stuff. It's everything that we know.
So it's so scary. And there are normal people out there that just vote Republican. They're just normal people that have no idea about this. And I'm sure if this were made open for them, they would rethink who they are going to put in office. From what you're saying, I mean, this is just unbelievable.
Well, what we're seeing now is the folks in the Trump world, and really the folks for all the sort of Republicans that are running for running in the primaries. What we're seeing now is, that's not going to. It's a lot of poo-pooing. Like whenever somebody writes about it, they poo-poo it. The problem is that the press is not writing about it correctly, or at least most of the press is not writing about it correctly. They're not talking about the fact that the exact same organization, the Heritage Foundation, did exactly this with a bunch of white papers before Reagan and got 60% of what they wanted done. They're not talking about this, about the fact that this is not just a Donald Trump thing. This is
this is much bigger.
Any Republican who gets into office, whether it's Nikki Haley, whether it's Ron DeSantis, whether it's the guy from Jersey, any of them. The guy from
Jersey.
They're all beholden to groups like the Heritage Foundation, the Federalist Society. They all take their marching orders from those organizations and their donors, because their donors are the big money donors to every Republican,
like the Koch brothers.
Exactly. Okay. The Mercers, the Koch brothers. The list goes on and on. The people that are the real power behind Republican financing.
Wow. Jay, you're just like a treasure trove of information. I mean, I was all set to just talk about reclaiming pride and why we need to do that. And then, you hit me with this is huge.
It is.
I read a lot of different news sources, but again, one of the reasons I love doing this show is I get incredible people on here like yourself that just are privy and knowledgeable and can really share this. What is it about you that, and it lets you pick up that rock and starts digging? Have you always been like this?
I grew up in southeastern Virginia in the 70s and 80s. I'm a classic Gen Xer, the early phase of Gen X. Excuse me. Pardon me.
Oh, take your time.
And my mother was an adult when she had me. My mother had me at 37. And I was her first child. She had thought she was infertile, and then surprise. Right. So I grew up with a parent that was a fully formed parent.
Right.
And a household where my mother had been a part of the March on Washington, not been an organizer, but had done the March on Washington. In her younger years, she'd lived in New York. She had befriended Malcolm X. They became good friends. So I grew up, all the things that, you sometimes hear about the things that Black parents have to teach their kids because the school systems don't. All those kinds of things my mother was teaching me about when I was growing up.
Yeah,
so
your mother was already enlightened, okay? And what a blessing. I don't think it was just the fact that she had you at 37. I think the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. This was a woman and enlightened.
Yes, absolutely. Very, very much so. So I had that good fortune, and it was a privilege to have her as a mother because she brought me up in a completely non-segregated manner. Like my neighborhood was basically Black, mostly Black people. My schools that I went to, she always wanted me to send me to the best schools. The best schools happened to be the most integrated schools.
Right.
She made sure that I understood, that that I had friends. For instance, my mother had breast cancer when I was 14. I had an after-school job. I worked in a comic book / bookstore / newspaper magazine store after school. I had started working there.
Job at 14 on top of everything else, and I'm sure your grades were incredible as well.
They're okay. Grades were okay. I did well on standardized tests. Grades, I was busy doing some other things. But when the owner of the store was a white guy, a total boomer, had been to Woodstock, hippie, long beard, but she knew he was very, very smart. He hired me to work after schools and on weekends. My mother knew that he valued education, and so when my mother was considering what would happen if she died from the breast cancer, even though we had lots of family around, he was the person that my mother wanted to bring me up if she had died. Just because of his energy, because she knew that he was he was going to be able to guide me the right way.
Point here, it was not about his color. It was about the essence of it. This is a big point, and I talk about this with people all the time. You hear colorblind or whatever. We're talking about the essence of what a person is.
Exactly.
I mean, that's huge that your mother wanted him to raise you because he was the best person to raise you.
Right. Exactly. The best person for me. Like if I had been a different kid, she might have left me, with another family member, but he knew that I was the best person but she didn't die then. So it was okay. So my mom survived through my childhood. So it was okay. But so she instilled in me a certain understanding of the world that, and I wasn't an activist from the start. Like I would stand up for kids being bullied or things like that if it ever happened when I was a kid. But it really wasn't until the Matthew Shepard incident when I was 30 that I really became engaged in activism. I was 31 actually.
So what was it about? Because there had been other killings, we know that, but that one, of course, hit all of us. For me, it was the sheer brutality.
Yeah, and just the desire to do a sort of the symbolism, propping him up. It was a lot. And then the same year was James Byrd, who was in Texas, who was dragged to his death, as a Black man. So as a Black gay man, I'm getting it from both sides. And so I helped start an organization called the October 19th Coalition. That was like a direct action protest group that we were focusing on getting hate crimes laws passed in New York. And eventually we did. But of course, the hate crimes laws in New York ended up being about as racist as the NYPD is, because if you've got the people that you've got enforcing the law are coming at it from an anti-Black perspective, then they're going to enforce it in an anti-Black,
But here's what makes no sense to me about that. Okay, there's a lot of Black people in the NYPD, right? Yeah. Right. I don't understand how there could be such. I mean, I see it, I know it. Yeah. How could that be there? What is missing? What is lacking? What can change that mindset? Because obviously there's something very messed up.
Well, the thing is, the problem is, it is a complete culture of policing and law enforcement,
of
in this
policing and
country,
laws.
in the entire country. The only way that you can really, because it's been in place undisturbed for so long that it's just ingrained in it. Like, so the only way that you could that you can really do something is something like what Camden, New Jersey did, which is the new police chief came, and I guess there was a whole governmental shakeup in that city, came in, they fired everyone, and they made everyone reapply for their job in the police force. And they looked at their record, they looked at their complaint history, they looked at what the people who complained about them looked like compared to, they really sort of went through it. And that's the kind of thing that would need to be done. There would need to be an overhaul in the police academy, the way things are trained.
Well, what you're talking about, what they did in Camden, was an overhaul, but that Camden is small, right? What
exactly.
would be involved in getting this mindset in the United States for each and every state and county to do, to put a program together to not only do this overhaul, to really do the background checks. And you're right. Check and see, like, when arrests were made, what was involved, what was the action. It's
also doing real background checks on officers when they go to police academy. It's like I've always been convinced that a lot of police officers are felons who just never got caught when they were younger, who just managed to get away with it. Right. And and certainly when it comes to sort of, you can look through people's histories, you can look at people's yearbooks, you can, there should be, if you're giving people this license to walk around armed with a deadly weapon, to be the person in authority in any given situation that they find themselves in, to be the representative and the agent of the state, you need to do more than just, beauticians get more training.
No, you're right. All those certifications, and you're right, they have to put in, that's a good analogy, X amount of hours that they have to put in. As a cosmetologist, right.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right.
They're everything.
We have the flip side of this, the current laws that are out there. You hear from the cops, well, it doesn't pay to do anything because the person's out on the street the next day. I don't know what to say to that. How do we make it better? You're a good person to ask. How do we make it better for people?
Well, the thing is, it's the problem is that we have serious systemic issues in our society that can't be solved in 4 years. Right? They take they're multi-generational approaches. The problem is that we have this political system that flips and flops and goes back and forth. And the only way that you can get anything that's truly lasting is through a constitutional amendment, and that takes a really, really long time.
It takes forever and a day.
Or a court case, which then can be overturned 50 years later. It's like, because what we see happening in politics on the local level, on the state level, on the city level, is what I like to call like chapter 20 solutions. Like, just deal with the problem as it is at the end of the story, rather than going to the prologue or in chapter 1 and rewriting the story. It's like we would not have so many sort of young, sort of mentally disturbed young people that are acting out violently, post high school age, if they had been able to avail themselves of mental health resources, from a very young age. If there was no lead in the paint in their buildings, if they got good nutrition, like there's all these things. Everyone knows, like when you're teaching, when you're working with sort of nice middle class parents, and you're talking about their education and getting your kid into good school. Preschool is very important. That so much happens in the first 5 years of life that will set your child on the road to success. Well, you know what? That applies to poor and working class kids and under-resourced kids. So if you're not trying to give those poor and working class kids the exact same level of support,
right,
and doing it consistently in every city and every state.
We have to, I am big on subsidies, okay? I'm a big person on programs. If I were ruling the world, I would have what they have in places in Europe. It would be a more equal place. Those kids, that are underserved, they've got two parents a lot of the time working. So when those kids are pointed at and saying, why weren't their parents watching them? Why weren't they parenting the way they should? Really?
Right.
Both parents
Right.
are working a 10-hour day to try and make ends meet in a society where rents are way too impossible.
Exactly.
I mean, there's just so much out there. I'm taking from what you're saying, Jay, and I personally feel we need to like reset to go back to the very beginning. We are living in a brand new time. And I think you agree with me with that, like the rules that existed before, the way the police were structured, the way programs were structured, the way the government, it's not working.
No,
right?
it's not.
Right. It's not working. So what do you do going forward? You know, like you're an activist, you're involved with so many things. You see something that's wrong and you try and do something about it. But how do we make more people? There's so much, Jay, where people think, oh, you know what? I see this all the time. Well, it's not happening to me. Or I'll tell somebody something like this Project 2025, guarantee the result I'm going to get, even from our most enlightened LGBTQ friends, it's going to be, oh, really? That's really happening. How do you deal with this?
Yeah. Well, the one thing that we're doing is we're just getting started on this public education program for Project 2025. And the way that I look at it is I think about the resistance to Trump that happened, after the 2016 election. Well, we waited until after the election to get together to go against that maniac. This time, we're starting a year in advance of the election. We're mobilizing a year in advance of the election. We're getting the word out. But you're right in the sense of there needing to be this complete cultural revamp that's not going to happen.
Right.
And it can't happen electorally.
Right.
And so when I talk about activism, it's like activism is kind of like voting in this world right now that we are living in. It is harm reduction. It is going after the one thing that you can focus on in that moment to highlight this particular thing in a way that's meaningful and will be seen and will be heard. And maybe that will change someone's mind, or maybe that will get someone else to pay attention. And and eventually that'll lead to the polls, and that will get people to vote, and that will get people to vote in the right way. So, sorry.
You're fine.
Tissue at the ready for your viewers. Yes, I'm pretty sure.
We do everything on this show. We sip water. We take tissues. We bring our dogs and pets on. It's like all about It's all about this stuff that's authentic, Jay.
Okay, fabulous.
So, what made you decide to reclaim Pride? What was it about Gay Pride, which has existed in New York? I've done every single one. Right. And when my daughter was born, I took her up until she didn't have interest in that anymore. I remember 2 years old, Dykes with Bikes starting the march off, and she was hysterical crying. It was like scary because, the motorcycles, the noise from the motorcycles.
Oh, sure.
Imagine a 2-year-old child in a stroller.
Oh, totally. Yeah, that being right at the front would not be the thing with a 2-year-old child.
Exactly.
With the siren.
But Pride was Pride, and then we watched Pride became for a bit, and you'll remember this. It became grassroots for a bit, and that was during the AIDS era. We had an AIDS organization. We marched with our clients' pictures on sticks with their pets. We were pet owners with AIDS Resource Service to get people to understand.
Yes, I remember. Yes,
people who were dying. These are people who love their animals the way you love your animals, and they have a voice, and we have to call attention to them because our clients were too sick to march. But I've done all of these prides, and I remember when Reclaim Pride started, and of course, a number of my friends are involved. Where do you think Pride started to fall apart for you?
It was right around the beginning of the Giuliani administration.
And it was the sterilization of New York.
Yeah. It's like, some of the cleanup, it started under Dinkins, But Giuliani is the one that brought in those damn bike rack barricades.
Right.
And Giuliani is the one that started blocking off the entirety of the West Village and turning it into a rabbit warren.
It was so scary. That's what I called it. It's a rabbit. And it was scary. I mean, I was stuck behind a barricade one year with Roll Arena and a bunch of people pressing against.
And then people start pushing. Yeah.
We were trying to get to the CT, the gay party boat. We had to jump over the barricades and run down the West Side Highway. That's crazy. And you know what? That's dangerous. I didn't realize that started with the Giuliani administration.
Yeah,
wow.
That's when the real clampdown happened, and it cracked down, and then over time, like that was the start. The start was with the barricading and the overabundant presence of cops. Now, it was a sort of thing where the 90s, late 80s to the 90s, there was a lot of gay bashing happening in the city. Like that was when, it was kind of in response to the HIV/AIDS thing. It's like when there's, it was in tandem. And so that was the way that the NYPD kind of got in. It's like, we're going to come protect you in case something happens and, blah, blah, blah. But really, it was the NYPD taking control of something that began as a counterculture thing that began being about our community, and that was still even at that time, even to this day, being attacked by the NYPD, especially trans women of color. And so, we saw it happen. It was a sort of death by 1,000 cuts. And then it was sort of like, oh, wow, look at all of these floats from all these banks. And aren't these the same banks that are funding like all the oil companies? And then once Gays Against Guns began, and we, which was in 2016, and we marched near the front of the Pride March, because it happened two weeks after Pulse was Pride. And there's the banks that they're getting to sponsor them are the same banks that are banking for the NRA, and which is like sticking up for this guy that's killing all of our people, and so there had been complaints going on in the community for years about that sort of stuff. A lot of people and young people sort of that came to New York in post 2000. Like a lot, like never even went. Young queer people I'm talking about never even went to the Pride Parade. They that's kind of how Reese Beach became revivified as sort of like a huge sort of gay mecca, was so many young people deciding, I'm just getting out of town for this Pride thing, and I'm just going to go.
It wasn't just the young people; it was like a lot of the people I knew. They just got in their 40s, and they're every year I would try and organize people. For me, it was getting involved with organizations, and then of course I could march. But when I wanted to be a spectator and organize friends, people would say, "Why?" And gay friends, "Why are you going to that? What do you want to go to this for?" But you know what? That was as bad, Jay, as the corporations taking over. It was equally as bad because the community not involving, and then the corporations having free reign for those mega floats. We all remember those, on both sides. It's bad. I do remember when Pride started, and I'm watching how it has grown.
Yeah.
For me, he's loving. I would love if everything could exist side by side. I wish they'd take the damn barricades away. I do realize we need, just because of bomb threats and things like that, and they do happen, and crazies being out there, we do need some kind of protection. I would want that. But I don't want the thing that we have now where, like, you're afraid if you step out of that barricade and try and, even for me, going in and out of the barricades is crazy.
But the thing is, like, and you're talking about, like, you're marching with an organization, you're into that barricade. The thing is, with those barricades, if, heaven forfend, there were some kind of someone had Airbnb'd an apartment that overlooked the march, the parade route, and started shooting down, everyone would be trapped. If someone put a bomb in the Optimo cigar place on the corner of Christopher and 7th and it exploded, everyone would be trapped. The barricades don't make people safer in the event of, and I've said this to members of NYPD and open things, and they have it. It shuts them down They can't deny it because it's just basic logic, but they don't do anything about it because it's about them exerting control over queer lives. And that's a recurring thing that happens across the country. It's as a sort of straight, white, cisgender, Christian, Republican, right-wing world seems to be getting smaller and smaller to the people that have always thought of that as being the standard of America. Like, this is what America is. Everything else is just other. But that basic thing is, as that keeps getting smaller and smaller and smaller and having less and less power, those folks who are in control in cities and states are going to keep trying to exert control over
push back.
Yeah, exerting control. But it's it's with black. It's like this kid in Texas with a beautiful hairstyle. Just gorgeous, intricate, great, not hanging all over the place, not sticking up all over the place. It's a braided thing, and they keep suspending him because if it were completely undone, then it would be too long for their rules, but it's not hanging down below. It's crazy.
You realize this insanity that we're having. It's insane that we're having a discussion about. And I don't know, I was about to say to you, how can we make America sane again? But then I also have to think, Jay, look at what's going on in the rest of the world.
Yeah,
look at
the world's on fire.
Right. The world is on fire with like extremists, okay, all over. And, here we are, you're an activist. We can only try and make our corner, right, of the world better. How did Gays Against Guns come about for you?
You said how did it? I mean, it was that the Pulse shooting. It was. I remember it happening. It was June 12th. I heard about it before I went to bed that night because it happened like wee hours in the morning, like 1 or 2, and I wasn't out partying or anything. I'm past that.
But
I was up late on a Saturday night because I watched Saturday Night Live, and then I'd like watch some other stuff, whatever. And I saw something about it shooting it, and I just went to bed. And then I woke up the next day, and my friend called me and said, "Did you hear?" I said, "Yeah, I heard about it. What about it?" And it was like 50 people are dead, and it was 49 actually. Yeah, but and I said, "What?" And so and then I just dove into it. And then because I was posting a lot of stuff about it on social media, that a friend of mine, I used to work at Gay Men's Health Crisis in the 90s and early aughties. And a friend of mine who had been on the board there when I was working there sent me a Facebook invite to this thing that was happening at the center, a meeting for our community that I think it was the Wednesday after it happened or the Tuesday after it happened. And so I was like, you know what, I'm going to go to that. And that's how Gays Against Guns was born. I walked in that room. I knew a couple of people. I didn't know most of the people. I didn't know the people that were presenting. I didn't know the people that were at the front of the room. But I just said, hey, this is who I am. This is what I've done. Put me to use. There's a lot of stuff I can do. I've been out of this for a while, but I can definitely help. And
do you think, like in the same way, Matthew Shepard has become a face, right? That face, we can never get the face out of our head.
Yeah,
do you
definitely.
think with Pulse, it was, I mean, those pictures were all over. And the fact that the number was so high and the fact that they were like sitting ducks, sometimes it takes like this huge tragedy to get momentum to go. Do you think that was the biggest catalyst, the numbers of people at Pulse?
Yeah. I mean, because obviously we've been living through gay bashings and, for years and attacks on queer people and trans people. But it was the numbers, and it was the fact that it took place in our club. And it's like our clubs are our sacred spaces. They really are. People can just
go to have a good time to let loose.
Yeah, but it's also, like when you're young and you're closeted or you're just coming out or you live in, like that place, it's really sacred. It's like really the core of your development as a queer. Now, club, a bar, it could be, it could be anything, but in that queer space, really, really makes a big difference to so many people in so many circumstances. And I think everybody that came into that room had been against guns. We're all New Yorkers. Like, New Yorkers don't have guns unless you're like, unless you own a jewelry store or you're like in a gang.
No, if you're like a drug dealer, you're going to have a gun.
Exactly.
Right. But none of us are like, we're not a gun mindset.
We're not a gun culture. Right. So it's like, yeah. And so, all the people that arrived, even some people from, other places were like, yeah, this is crazy. And we said that what we need to do is we need to bring the queerness. We looked at the world around us, the gun violence prevention world. And we looked and we saw a lot of vigils. We saw marches. We saw policy forums. We didn't see any direct action. We didn't see any act up, direct action,
Right.
Get in people's faces, name, blame, and shame people, call people out by name, call out the Republican Party by name, call out the NRA by name, make fun of people using glitter. That we were like, we're going to bring that sensibility to it to give. And then, and so in one of our actions, everyone's welcome. We're not, and we have a lot of members that are not gay or lesbian. They're straight married people with kids, but
right, they're against guns.
But they're against guns, and they like what we do because it's not just sitting in a chair and listening to someone. When you do a Gays Against Guns action, you feel like you're doing something, that you're actually like being present in the world, not hiding behind.
And it might actually, reach where it needs to reach. I will tell you, one of the most powerful things you do that I saw when Gays Against Guns first formed, the first time I saw you were all wrapped in white gauze.
That's the human beings. Yes, we have. Yeah,
right, there's something very like dead body, like mummy, like scary about that. I can't even explain it. And whoever came up with that is a visual, is a brilliant.
I'm sure you know them. It was Tigger Ferguson. You know Tigger.
Tigger, right? Of course, Tigger came up with
Tigger's idea before our first Pride March. They're called the Human Beings, and they're all just veiled. They're all dressed in white. They're all veiled, and everyone carries a placard with a photograph of someone who's been taken. Who's in there, and the whole idea of them is that they're taking space for someone on this earth, for someone who can't be here, and they're veiled so that the person who, the member or the person who's doing it is not the person that you see. The person that you see is the person on the placard. The picture, the person on the placard. And that was Tigger Ferguson, and that is Gays Against Guns calling card.
That is extremely a powerful pushback. One of the things you said about yourself when I saw you in the play, because I'll bring this up, Whiskey River, you were so fabulous. But when we had the Q&A with the audience, you talked about protesting, and you talked about yourself protesting peacefully. You believe in protesting peacefully. How do you keep I have a horrible temper. I'm much better doing this kind of thing than I am, quote unquote, as you would say, doing an action. I have a horrible Irish temper, and I see red. How do you keep yourself centered and peaceful? I lost your sound for a sec. Oh no, we lost your sound. Hold on.
Let me go away and come back.
Okay, do that. Go away and come back. Hang on, everybody. Thank you for staying with us. We have these technical difficulties happen on our show, and I didn't make up technical difficulties. I got it from my friend Mark Silverstone, but it certainly does describe the challenges involved when you are podcasting, coming in and going out and getting online. It's not as easy as it looks. They tell you anybody can be a podcaster, but that is not exactly true. And I have to credit my producer, Juan, who makes everything run smoothly. Are you there?
I'm back.
Oh, you're back better and stronger. Oh my God, the bionic Jay Walker. I was just explaining to everybody what happens, the beauty of podcasting, how we have our technical difficulties. But anyway, how do you protest peacefully? What you personally?
Oh, yeah. Well, for me, because as you brought up the play, the thing is, it's like for me, activism is not that different from acting. Activism is a communication medium where you are using your words and your movements and your props to get an idea across. And so staying in a performative mindset allows me to sort of dismiss like some fool that's like going to say something nasty to me or call me a name or whatever. But I will do performative anger back at them. And I will try to bring my little rapier wit to bear, and I'll try to do stuff in the moment that makes my colleagues laugh who are on the who are there with me, because that lightens the moment, but it still manages to like get under the skin of the person that we're going after. So yeah, it's that sort of balance.
That is a very brilliant technique. And I was about to say your mama raised you well. She raised you smart, and she raised you to use what you have to fight back in this world. Well, my goodness, we're down to like the last couple of minutes. So I do want to talk about your podcast. Your podcast is called Girl Stop.
Girl Stop. Yeah.
Girl Stop.
We've been doing it for almost 2 years. We started in March of 2022. My friends, Dan Ramirez and Alyssa Stein, who I met them both through activism, mostly through Rise and Resist. And Dan's done other podcasts in the past. Alyssa had done other podcasts in the past. I've been a part of the Gays Against Guns radio gag podcast in the past. And we just decided that it would be fun to do a podcast where we just talk about politics and New York and television shows that we like and whatever's happening. We do it once a week, and it's just fun. They're a great group of people. Alyssa's like a Jewish woman around a little bit older than me. Dan's a Latino straight man, a little bit younger than me, and I'm this middle-aged gay black guy. So it's like we have a lot of different perspectives. We all come from different places, and so it's fun. And we respect each other. And we disagree when we disagree. We never disagree angrily. But we normally just sort of come to understanding when we have disagreements. Like listen
to it. Y'all are better than The View.
Okay.
I know, because it's the dynamic, the Latino, Black and queer, and the Jewish girl. And I knew that without you even. I really love the dynamic about it, and it makes for good listening, right?
It is a lot of fun.
We can discuss politics. Okay. I mean, what do we say? We agree to disagree, but that's not true. They only say that when they have some crazy Republican concept, right? But for the three of you, you're all on the same page in terms of your politics, more or less. But you all have different perspectives because look at your backgrounds.
Exactly. And we value that. And so for viewers, it's Girl GURL Stop. Girl, Stop podcast. If you want to look it up,
fine. It comes up. You're doing good search engine organization because optimization.
Good.
Googled it and it came up right away. Well, my God, we are at the end of our rope here.
Oh my goodness.
J.W. Walker, I could talk to you forever. What I like to do is I like to get a picture of our last magical moment. So say cheese.
Cheese.
One more and one more. It's so great. You're amazing. I could do 5 hours worth of shows with you. And you just want to go have hot tea with honey, blow your nose, and think about your next action. Jay,
I will.
I'm so appreciate you coming on here tonight. I'm wishing you an amazing new year. All good things for you ahead. If I can help you in any way or any of the organizations that you are working with, please don't hesitate to call. And I want to thank everybody who tuned in tonight. I realize New Year's is next. This is our New Year's show. It's a perfect perfect show to start the new year with a lot of power. Thank you,
Yes.
J.W. Walker. Thank you to our audience. And
Thank
good
you,
night,
Wendy.
everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.